Good morning, everyone. My name is Emily Joseph, and I'm a junior finance and international business major, and I am also a Leonard Leadership Scholar. Today, I have the privilege of introducing founder, chairman, and CEO of PGi, Mr. Boland Jones. Mr. Jones showed his true entrepreneur spirit in the mid-'80s with the start of his first company, Amnex, which provided the industry's first alternative operator service. He sold Amnex in 1991 and started PGi, which developed a prepaid calling card technology to help military members and their families keep in touch. In addition to his accomplished company, Mr. Jones and his wife started the Boland Jones Foundation to help aid children in need and combating cancer. We are so honored to have him share his leadership experiences with us today. So please help me and join me in welcoming Mr. Boland Jones.
That's cool. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks, everyone, and good morning. Thanks for taking the time to come here. Hopefully, if you skipped a class, it was a boring one. I'm extremely nervous at a university speaking to students. I still have nightmares about not graduating. I'm not sure I did graduate, by the way, but things were different then than they are now. And as I see and talk to college students in different places, which I've had the privilege to do, quite frankly, it's very intimidating because you guys are so much more equipped, so much smarter, so much more aware than we were, I think, about life and opportunities and things about those type of subjects. It's unbelievable. I think we were, the whole college experience for us was more of a life experience. As to now, you talk to young kids and they're on their way to college. They know exactly what they're going to study and what they want to major in, and they got their lives mapped out, or at least a lot of them I've talked to. Going to colleges with my kids. I have 3 children. I've been to colleges with the first 2 to investigate where to go to school, what to major in, and you talk to kids on the campuses, and they're literally, freshmen that know exactly what they want to do. So it's very impressive, very intimidating. But I always say when you are asking me to speak to kids like you, you've hit the bottom of the barrel and you're searching for entertainment. What advice could I possibly give this group? And I certainly am honored to be here at the Terry School and certainly honored to be picked as a speaker here. I know you guys have had big-time speakers in the past from big companies like Coca-Cola or some other big Georgia companies or some other big regional companies, so I appreciate you listening to my little story. I'm going to take this off because I can't bend down that far. Okay, much better. Is that better? All right. Everybody awake? Anybody? I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky. I won't tell you my real age, but I'm 50-something years old. And I grew up in a family of 7 brothers and sisters, and I have 3 beautiful children of my own now, and we live in Atlanta, and I did not go to this school. I'm sorry I didn't. I went to Miami of Ohio. And we have a serious football team there as well, and every once in a while you'll hear about them every 10 or 15 years. But now I'm a huge fan of this school because this is where my first child has come, and hopefully I'll have more children to come here. So trying to get involved here and trying to support the effort. So you guys are very lucky to be at this school, I can tell you that from looking at it on the other side. But let me tell you, I can tell you some anecdotal stories about my history. People always say, we want you to talk, you've been successful, so forth and so on. Let me start by saying I have no idea what success is. If you talk about success in life, I think that's more about you're doing something with yourself in life or with your friends or your family that you actually like to do and that you're happy about it. And that's so important, it's unbelievable. And I know you hear some of this rhetoric from other people, so raise your hand and call BS anytime you want. You can chime in and ask me a question. But you got to do what you're passionate about, and you got to do what you're happy about. I've been successful in business, for sure. I've been lucky as hell. I've been broke twice. I've bet everything twice, and I've lost everything. And I went back and bet again for a 3rd time, and I hit my 777s, and I went on from there to do the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. What are some things that you guys would relate to that I've done? I took my company public, the one I have now, PGi, in 1996, and we created a really cool calling card platform. This is back before cell phones, if you can imagine that. And anywhere you were in the world, you could dial into this for free, and then you could dial out for a minimal cost, like a Skype out on a calling card. It's basically what it was. And we parlayed that into a public offering. We raised hundreds of millions of dollars. We were growing very fast. This was in the mid-90s. All that went well. Then that business has changed a bunch, and I'll get back to that. Then I was given a speech like this in 1996. I know still nothing since then to tell you, but a guy came up out of the audience and introduced himself and said, I think I have an idea, and we went to a restaurant the next day, and we dreamt up WebMD, and we started that together. And I'm sure some of you have seen that website today. My friend actually went to this school, by the way, ran the company while I was running my company, and I funded him to get started with that company. And came up with the name at a Houston's restaurant. And then from there, it just seems like I bumped into one thing after the other. And at that time, the internet was brand new. And pretty much anything you did, if you had the boldness to start something and move forward with it, it worked. Or you thought it worked. And so since then, I've done things like S1 Bank, which was the first internet bank. I've helped start probably another 100 companies, things that I'm trying to think of ones that you may have heard of before. HowStuffWorks.com. I don't know if you've ever seen that site or been there. We started that company back in 2002 or 3. So I've had the opportunity to start these things. Now, where does all this start? And the last thing you need to hear is somebody standing up here babbling about where they got lucky, and that's what it is, it's luck. It's hard work, but it's a lot of luck, because a lot of those things I just told you about would not work again. The way we did it, and the way we laughed and giggled to ourselves, and the way we dared ourselves to do stuff, that would never work again. Times are different now, and you'd have to take a different approach. And in fact, we've tried to do some of those things again, and they didn't work. So, but the point of it is you get out there, and you got to remember a few things, in my humble opinion, when you leave this school. And it's hard, but the good news is every one of you will fall in, especially coming from the Terry School of Business, every one of you will fall into a good situation, I guarantee it. And it will be okay. All you have to do is give it the effort. But you've got to ask yourself a bunch of questions. Some of you are here, you're finance majors. Some of you are thinking about, you're just going into the Terry School of Business and you had to claim a major, so I took digital marketing or marketing as my major, so forth. A lot of you will come out of here and you'll do stuff that have nothing to do with what your major was. And that's okay too. I got out as a finance and accounting major at Miami of Ohio, decent school, and I knew right away, I went into school thinking I'm going to be a race car driver, so none of this matters. And I don't need to spell because I'm going to have a secretary. I still can't spell, and I'm still not a race car driver. So I came out of school, and the first job I could find was being a chef, and I sort of told a white lie that I could cook, and somebody looked at me and said, if you can really cook, I'm standing in his kitchen, make me hollandaise sauce right now. And I was like, So I started whipping some eggs or doing whatever, and he's like, okay, good enough. And so I thought, well, I'm going to be a chef. And so then I said, well, I'm going to go to saucier school. And then at that point, coming in at 3 and 4 in the morning, my parents, still living at my parents' house 6 months after graduation, they were saying, what are you doing? My sister, let's just tell you an anecdotal about your major and how it may or may not matter. My sister comes home. We have dinner every night at home. There's 6 or 7 kids around the table, and my dad goes around and says, tell me how everybody's day is. And very traditional Catholic family. And my sister, who can't spell cat either, and went to University of Kentucky, says, oh, I made $1,000 this week. And this is 30 years ago, and everybody stopped and dropped their forks and said, what? Is it legal? How did you make $1,000? She said, oh, yeah, I'm selling discount long-distance telephone service. It's this new thing. This is back in 1982, before some of you were even born, obviously. But this is when the divestiture of the phone system happened. And she said to me, Boland, you ought to come down there. They're taking applicants for jobs. So I go down there, and I'm on the phone at night, in a phone room at night, calling
people at their homes, ask them if they'd like to save money on their long distance. I like it okay. I find that I can sell, and I start finding my way, and the business owner comes in one night and says, who wants to move to California and start opening up offices in California and Las Vegas and places like that? And I raised my hand, and he said, you got to be in the parking lot with everything in your car. I'll pay you $1,000 a month tomorrow morning, and you can have the job. So me and a bunch of guys got in our cars and drove out to the West Coast, and that was the beginning of where I ended up now. And what does that have to do with finance and accounting? So my point is, you're going to get a great education here, and some of you will follow right into the intended career path, and some of you won't. But the biggest thing to remember is to get in the game, is to get out there and be open to what comes to you. That's the most important thing, is to be open and open-minded about what's coming to you. Don't have it so planned out, as I started at the beginning of my talk, don't have it so planned out that you eliminate options, okay? How many people in here think they can sell something? A few people? Thank you for raising your hand. Just seeing if you all are asleep or what. Typing on your phones. Learning how to persuade people to do things is probably, if you're looking at the Institute for Leadership, being a leader obviously is number one, but learning how to persuade people to do things is part of leadership. How many of you here persuade your friends to go to a certain bar? Who is the leader of the keg party? Who's sitting at the keg saying, gun that beer, do this shot? Those are the future leaders. You laugh, that's scary, but it's so true, it's not even funny. When we go to colleges to recruit, I always tell the people that from my office, I always say, go to the fraternity parties, go to the sorority parties, and find the leader of the party. That's our guy, that's our girl. Okay, because the world needs leaders, and hopefully what you're learning here is something that you can help lead other people with. Most people are insecure. Most people are afraid. Most people are afraid to come up on this stage and put the microphone to their mouth, and I'm nervous too. But once you start doing it, and once you start finding some confidence there, it's an amazing gift and it's an amazing tool. And you can lead people to improve their situation and thus improve your situation. So believe in yourself as a person that can persuade people to do things. Every one of you in here will persuade somebody at some point to go out with you, to date you, God forbid to even kiss you. You'll have the guts one day to say something to somebody that you didn't think you had the guts to say. This is all about learning about yourself and how to use yourself and your talents as a leader. So it's all about learning how to persuade people to do things, learning how to lead people, right? I grew up in a competitive sports family, and I have a competitive family of my own now. And everything was about competition. If my dad said, okay, get in the car and follow me home, I'd have to pass him before I got home. My sisters and my brothers and I would race on anything, to do anything. We'd always challenge each other. The second thing is you have to have some competitive burn in you. You have to be willing to win. It's very important. Whether you get it from sports, you get it from how you grew up, or you get it from your friends, you've got to work on succeeding and being a champion. Now, some people say, well, I'm a more reserved person. I don't need to win. That's fine if your group wins, but you've got to lead your group to win, so you have to know how to win to lead somebody to win. The best feeling that you people will have, if I could ever pray for you to reach a certain point in your lives, each of you, and it doesn't matter if you work and make money or you work for nonprofits or what you do, achieving something on your own, there's nothing like it. Would you all agree? The self-esteem and the feeling you get from achieving something on your own. And there's no way to achieve something on your own without trying something that may be slightly uncomfortable to you. It's gonna happen to you, so you gotta be open to that. I had never sold anything, and now I am selling discount long-distance telephone services over telephones, which led me to a communications industry, which now I give speeches, God help you, about advice of leadership and advice. I go to conferences and speak about communication software. I hang out with my Skype buddies from Luxembourg. I hang out with my newly rich friends over at What's Up. Talk about different things and different concepts and different technologies with companies that you've heard of today that have applications, Viber, on your cell phones, on your mobile phones and stuff. But it wasn't until I had that confidence and I achieved something on my own that I then had more confidence to go out and achieve the next thing and then start to lead people. And so having that self-confidence and believing in yourself is a big deal. A couple more things, and then I'll let you guys, if you want to, you can ask some questions. One of the other things I wanted to talk about was don't ever, and I know this isn't necessarily the best formal speech you've had, so if you say, God, this guy's all over the place, that's because I suffer severe ADD, which helps me a ton in business. I'm kidding. But don't ever settle for what somebody tells you is the deal. If you do something every day and you go, I wonder why we do it like this. Well, this is the way it's always been done. Don't listen to that. Don't listen to that. You're seeing that more in your generation. Your guys' generation is showing our generation and the generation before us, the greatest generation, not to settle for status quo. You probably hear that a ton, but think about it. Everybody uses this analogy, but it's so good. Steve Jobs looked at the phone industry, the cell phone industry. Nokia and Motorola are the kings of it. And everybody said, Steve, don't try to get in the phone business. That's dominated by these Razr phones and these Nokia phones and everything. I mean, he didn't listen. He said, well, there's a better way to do this. I don't know why we've been doing it this way. There's a better way to do that. And lo and behold, he invents the category smartphone. Right? These are people, the kid that just made $19 billion for his company at What's Up from Facebook. Facebook told him no. Twitter told him no. He started his own company. And now they're begging for him to join their company and paying him $19 billion. He didn't accept the way things are done. Right? So you guys get that, right? Don't always question why things are done the way they're done. Whatever it is you do, business or not, whatever you do. And then lastly is, a couple things going out. Lastly is, you gotta have passion. Living life without passion is like living without a soul. You gotta have passion, and I don't care what the passion's for, let yourself be passionate, which is to let yourself be embarrassed. It's showing your unveiled self to whoever you're showing it to. But that's what passion's all about. It's like they say, what do they say? They say, dance like nobody's looking, laugh like you're dying, that type of stuff. I mean, it's that type of thinking. You got to be passionate. Today, I've been in my current business 21 years or 22 years. I've changed the business 4 times. I'm now the leading conference call company in the world. I started that within this company 10 years ago. And everybody's telling me now I'm getting ready to approach another industry, the chat and the video chat industry, and everybody says it's been done. Skype's done it. The company that just sold to Facebook's done it. Don't get into it. But I've got an idea that there's a better way to do what they have been successful at doing. And I don't accept it. Now, I have to listen to people. I have to listen and take in, why do you think this is a dumb idea? And I weigh it a little bit. But you know how the banks are too big to fail? We just went through that in our recession. I'm too stupid to fail. That's my claim to fame. I'm too stupid to fail. I am too dumb to think things through rationally. Okay? Have you ever heard the expression, ready, fire, aim? That sums it up for me. I am course correction. Get going and get forward movement, and we'll correct on course as we go, right? Who's ever seen the show Mad Men? Have you all ever, has that gotten to you all? Okay. It's probably a has-been thing already because it's had 3 or 4 series, but Don Draper is a advertising guy in the 1950s or 60s. He's a total stud. He smokes in every scene and drinks, but he's never drunk. Gets all the chicks, rules the world on Madison Avenue in New York in advertising. But my favorite thing that he ever said to his advertising team is, hurry up and show me ideas that I can tell you suck so that we can get to the one that I love. And if you think about it, what he's saying is, I just want to see as many things as I can so I can get to the point where I can find the one I like. It's let's hurry up and get going. Let's have forward movement. I'm all about activity and action. But I have people that are nice enough to work with me every day. They're Harvard graduates, they're Yale graduates, they're MBAs, they're super MBAs. They sign their stuff with the initials behind their name, those kind of people. They write you a note, they'll write, thanks, Sam, MBA, Yale. Okay, Sam. But Sam is over here, and Bill from Princeton is over here, and I'm here, and they're at my flank. And I just want to say this, they're too smart to try something, to start a business or to be an entrepreneur. They're way too smart because they'll think it through and go, wait a minute, these are all the places we can go wrong here. This is suicide. We're going to fail possibly. Here's the percentage of failure is 93% for every new business that starts. But they're missing the passion. That's what I'm talking about. They're missing the true passion. Now, you can be passionate about a crappy idea, or you can be passionate about a good idea. So you have to, if you're taking notes as a wannabe entrepreneur, you have to have a decent idea. And the way to test your idea is to test it on your friends. And then the way to test your idea is keep thinking about it and test it every time you run into a situation. Test your idea in that situation, or test your idea with that group of people you're with. Or go out and find the focus group that you find best to test your idea. And if your passion plus the test say yes, then it's probably a decent idea. And all you need as an entrepreneur with passion is a medium idea. And passion, you can get everybody following you. Who's seen the movie? What's the old John Belushi movie, the college movie? I can't remember the name of it. Animal House. Has anybody seen it in here? If you haven't, it's part of this Terry School of Business curriculum. You need to go watch it. Anyways, John Belushi's long dead and gone, but the idea of passion where everybody in their fraternity's been kicked off campus, they're drunks, they're stoners, whatever, and they're sitting in their living room, and Dean Werber is getting ready to come in and just evict them all, and he stands up and gives the charge. Come on, guys, let's get together and let's fight back. Let's fight back, And it's a corny scene, but it's about him persuading those people to follow him. And he's got a terrible idea, but his power of persuasion and his passion gets those people to lead him. And that's what I'm talking about when you bring these things together. Lastly is, and then I can turn it over to questions, just checking my notes real quick. Listen. It's the art that nobody has anymore. I've learned it as I've grown older. But listening is an important talent. Listen to people with the intent of being influenced by what they're saying. If you've ever done that before, you actually have to really stop and listen. You're listening, but you're not. When you're talking to a buddy and he's like, yeah, and you can tell he's not really listening or she's not really listening. And you're like, no, I want you to listen to me. When somebody's got an idea or somebody's got a counter idea to your idea or a counter passion to your passion or a thought or whatever, listen, because it's a time to learn. The biggest opportunity out there is learning from other people and learning about their passion and their ideas, which will eventually and probably turn your light on. And you can compare notes with your own thoughts, with your own inner thoughts, with their thoughts. So listening with the intent to be influenced is a huge tool that if you can master it, it's very, very useful. Be passionate, believe in yourself, don't accept that this is the way we've always done things. Always question that. And then listen to others as they talk to you either about your idea or their ideas. And these are some, I think, some useful things that you guys can take and go forward with. You guys are going to be great because you're starting with a big advantage coming out of this institution. We can take questions, but I want to just say one last thing about the way I've looked at things and the way I've looked at leadership. You cannot be successful on your own. It's impossible. I don't care if you are an entrepreneur, you work for an entrepreneur, you work in a nonprofit, you're the head of a household, you run a university, you have to have other people with you. And those people have to believe in your leadership if you are the elected leader or the self-appointed leader in some cases. But you have to win them over. And the way to win them over is to persuade them to see things through your vision, to see things through your light. So you've got to incorporate those people, and you've got to let them not only share in your vision or share in your leadership ideas, but you've got to let them contribute to it. So it's important learning how to include others. And then lastly, I'll say, something to think about is something that my father-in-law told me one time, which I thought, yeah, that was ridiculous, or that was funny, but then the more I think about it, the more it makes sense, and it just goes like this. The less you bet, the more you lose when you win. And that's the way a lot of entrepreneurs think. The less you bet, the more you lose when you win. So you have to be all in, all chips on the table for whatever your passion is. And I think that'll serve you well. Anybody got any questions or any comments? Anything you want to throw up here? Throw at me?
I do. Are we good?
Go ahead, yeah.
Well, firstly, thank you so much for speaking with us today. I'm Sarah Beatty. I'm a current Leonard Scholar in the 2014 class. And as part of our curriculum for the Institute for Leadership Advancement, we talk a lot about values and developing our own values. And I was just curious as to how maybe your values have played out in some corporate decision-making in your roles.
You know, it's a great question. By the time you leave home and go to college, your values are in cement pretty much. Now you've got to have somebody hold you accountable to your values throughout your lifetime, whether it's your best friend or your spouse or whatever. It's important to have somebody hold you accountable to those values. But values are everything. Loyalty, I'm a huge loyal person. I remember who is well-intended, and I remember who's not well-intended. But you always, what you want to do, the most important value is harmony. You've got to, you know, everybody wants to be around somebody that's positive. Everybody wants to be around somebody that makes them feel good to be around them. And that's not necessarily a value, but it's a personal trait which comes from values. And the values are, you know, be open and accepting of others, be willing to listen to others' ideas and validate their opinions, be loyal. You know, I always tell my guys, you know, they'll come in with their heads hanging one day and they'll be like, we're going to be a little bit short on earnings this quarter. And I'll be like, well, what happened? And somebody will start on some line of BS. And I'll say, look, just start with the truth, and then we'll back up from there, you know, but let's hear what the real truth is first so we know exactly what's going on. So it's important to have those values big time as you go. If you work for somebody, go to work, you got to keep those values strong. They're at the end, at the core of what will get you through. Yeah, you had a question over here.
Earlier you said you gambled and lost everything twice. Can you
Yes.
tell us about that and how you started that?
I don't remember anything about those times. Men can compartmentalize, as these people know in here, and I've compartmentalized that. Well, let's see. The first time, so starting out, when I left Louisville and moved to California, I was 22 years old, and by the time I was 24, I asked the people I was working for if I could have some equity in the company that I was earning them a lot of money for, and they said, I don't think that's possible. I said, okay, well, I'm going to quit because I think I can do this better than you all are doing it. You're sort of restricting me, but is it okay if I quit? So I raised money, started my company, and by the time I was 28, you know, I had it up to $200 million in revenue and sold it and thought, well, you know, that's it. And they gave me some money for my share of the company, the people I sold it to, and I was very neophyte about selling. And they put a lot of it in a future employment agreement that I had to stay there for the next 2 years. And being the strong-minded character I am, I didn't work for somebody very well. So I got fired. So I took the little bit of money I got, that I was supposed to get a lot more from the employment agreement. I forewent that, and I took a little bit of money I got and tried to go after them, lost all that, and so at 28, I was sitting broke. And then the second time I was broke was 3 years later. I scraped up some money from some investors and tried something again, and it didn't work. And so in 1991, I moved to Atlanta, Georgia, and raised another $1 million from some of the same investors of the previous deal. And at that time, I was so broke, my father-in-law asked me, I married his daughter, obviously, and he asked me, how much money would it take you to get totally broke? And I said, somebody would have to give me about $300,000 for me to be dead broke. That's how negative I was. He said, do you have a car? I said, no. He said, well, I'm gonna lend you a car. And then he said, how are you gonna get a house? I said, I have no idea. I stumbled on a guy in Atlanta that was willing to sell his house, and I pitched him my business idea, and he lent me the money to buy his house in return for some stock. And he's been a successful entrepreneur in Atlanta and made tons of money, made several $100 million, and he made some money off me, so that's the couple times I've been dead broke. But I'll tell you, it's, what's the movie, Sunset Boulevard? About Cecil DeMille and whoever movie stars, they said the best script comes from an empty stomach. When you're broke and you're facing, literally there's nobody to help you, and I came from no money. My parents never offered me any money, and there was nowhere to turn, so I was determined to be successful on my own. And you just figure out how to make things work. I can't explain it to you, but that desperateness gives you a fuel that you've never had before. It's good stuff. And all the time, as I'm older, I always try to put myself back in a desperate situation. Michael Jordan, you all have heard of Michael Jordan before, right? He won successfully several basketball championships, and his famous move, what he would say after they won the season, the interviewers would say, Michael, do you think you can do it again? He said, I don't think so. Our team is older, we're tired, we're not as good as we usually are, and I think we just got lucky this year. And he would do that to get his team in a panic to try harder next year. And it's hard to do, but if you are blessed with some success, it's hard to stay fresh, and it's hard to keep those ideas like you were when you were desperate. But those are the good ideas. Anyways, long-winded answer. Anybody else? Questions?
I have one. So Sarah asked you about your values. I was curious about how those translated into going global and maybe even going public.
I'm sorry, what was the question again?
About how your values translated into going global and going public with your company.
I'm not sure my values played a role in that. I don't know if I can make a direct correlation with my values to having a public company. And by the way, having a public company is not necessarily the smartest thing to do all the time. It's just at the time, they offered us so much money to be public, it was worth it to us more than it would ever be if we stayed private. But those are moments in time. Right now, it's not as cool to be a public company, but it's starting to swing back that way. Look, the whole thing about, hey, you got to work hard, you got to be lucky, and you have to be working hard, and you have to have great people around you. I mean, it's a recipe that is such a moment in time. It is just absolutely pure luck. You only hear about the success stories. You never hear about all the failures. And believe me, for every success story, there's 2 million failures. And I mean failures meaning they went out of business. So successful people that stand up here and try to tell you there's a formula for success, I'm not sure I could go for that. There is a formula for success in hard work, and there's a formula of success in good ideas, and there's a formula of success if you're an entrepreneur that you have good people around you, but that still doesn't mean you're going to be successful. There has to be a moment in time. You have to be chasing a mega trend, whether it's social networking today, or whether it's video communications today, or whether it's async communications of sorts, groups, base camp, SharePoint, those type of collaboration groups, Those are some of the mega trends that are going on today. So if you're in a mega trend, if you have a good idea, if you're deeply passionate, if you're lucky, if you're well-funded, you know, and of course if you have, I mean, the values, I've seen people win with bad values, so I'm not sure the values correlate all the way. Long term, you'll lose with bad values, but you just have to be in the right place in the right time and be lucky enough to be there when it happens, to be honest with you. Yes?
What was an idea that you saw and you sort of said, you know, how did I think that first? And if so, what was it?
Yeah, so, and not everybody here wants to be an entrepreneur, so thank you for letting us carry on about ideas and starting businesses. But even if you don't want to be an entrepreneur, you have to learn you're eventually going to work for an entrepreneur. And so you have to understand it as well. And how do you know if you're an entrepreneur or not? I'm not sure. It just sort of is in you one way or the other. But to answer your question, the best ideas are personal experience ideas. Like if you personally experience, I traveled, I never lived in any place but a hotel from the ages of 22 to 25. I never unpacked a shaving kit. I never had a refrigerator. I went out every night. I spent every bit of money I had. That's not changed either. But chasing ideas or chasing things that I want to try, but the best ideas are from personal experiences. And my first personal experience was I traveled constantly and could not communicate. I could not communicate with my parents. I could not communicate with my buddies from school. I could not communicate because you had to be in a hotel and they wanted to charge you an arm and a leg per minute, and you had to have a credit card on file at the front desk, and I didn't have a credit card, and so I came up with the idea of the calling card before the debit card. And then I said, who is most likely to be in the worst shape communication-wise? And then I listened to some people while I bounced my idea off people, and somebody said, my father-in-law is the Joint Chiefs of Staff, retired admiral in charge of everybody that's ever been in the military or active military, and he's changing the pay structure from cash to electronic pay. And if there's any way that you could intercept some of their electronic payment every 2 weeks and give them a card that they had credit on, that they could make phone calls, you could really make a fortune doing that. And so I took my calling card idea of not being able to communicate from hotels and took it to the military people, and that's how I first started out, and luckily it worked. It didn't work at first, but it worked eventually. But it's always from personal experiences, for me. It's seeing something, living something, or experiencing something where I'm like, why in the hell does this work like this? Why wouldn't they just do this? Or why doesn't this act like this? Why didn't it be this? Or why isn't it available here if it's only available here? So personal experience is the best answer I got for you there.
Yes?
Do you limit yourself to telecommunications business, or would you, if you see an idea, if you have an idea in a completely different business, would you chase that as well?
Absolutely. I have, I do, and I will. I've used our company to get into different businesses. I'm involved, you know, I just funded a deal which I think is going to be killer. You all tell me if you agree with me or not, but we found somebody that's a chemist, like whatever the show is where the guy's a chemist, a high school science teacher. What's that show that, yeah, Breaking Bad. We found a cook. And we got a new way to make meth that's safe. No, we have figured out using nanotechnology, we figured out how to give you a tattoo that's made out of water and food coloring that will look exactly like a tattoo from a tattoo parlor, except it's safe because it doesn't have metals in the paint. And we can remove it with a sonogram procedure in 10 minutes. And so, you know, that ain't your daddy's telecommunications idea, right? But the more I go around in life, the more I see the tattoos increasingly, and the Hollywood know-it-alls have led the charge in People magazine, right? But the more it's becoming socially acceptable. It used to be a tattoo and a Harley Davidson was like a gangster and a bad person. Now those things, the Harleys have made, great progress on a CEO campaign. We got these white CEO guys driving these Harleys. They look at them, they're idiots. They're not cool guys. And now the tattoos are starting to appear on more normal, socially, normally acceptable, people. And I think the tattoo business, I've studied it, I've looked at it. When the guy first showed me the idea, it's a huge opportunity if you had an erasable, removable tattoo that looked like a real tattoo. So that's a personal experience again. Yes?
Who's had the most profound impact on your life and why?
Oh, man. You'll be a good interviewer for some big company in the future. Or somebody asked you that question? No, that's a good question. Okay. This is going to sound terribly boring. I would say the most impact, there's two or three people that have the most impact, right? So I would say my family and my parents mainly, but also my brothers and sisters have had at a younger age, had a huge impact on me. For bad or for good, by the way. I always felt like 7 kids, I was one of the kids that had something to prove because I wasn't the smart kid. The whole family went to Notre Dame or went to fancy schools. Boland went to Miami, Ohio. Everybody, read books and did well on the SAT. Boland did not, Sort of the joke was, and then there's Boland. And so I literally joke about it, but I think that had a huge impact on me that I had something to prove. So probably for good or for bad, there was a, and probably still is, proved to my dad, there's a chip there, or there's an issue there. Not to get deep here this morning, but that's probably one impact. And then other impact, I would say early on in my career, I would look at men and women who are successful at business. And there's one person, the early on Steve Jobs was a guy named Bill McGowan. And he challenged the Federal Communication Commission in the United States government on why we have this federally funded phone system, but nobody can use it except for these Ma Bell companies. And so he started MCI, and he was the rebel of that time in the early 80s. And I got to meet him, got to hang out with him. Very impressive guy, very humble, very smart, very passionate. And I would say those are the people that have had the biggest influence on my life. Now, today in time, the biggest influence on my life is no doubt my kids. But they influence me in a different way. They drive me to do things in a different way. They're really a reflection of who you are. So it has a huge impact when you see yourself in these 3 kids. You sort of say, oh, jeez, am I? Oh, God. Or, hey, it's pretty good. You get a lot of that. So it shifts in life, what impacts you and what doesn't. But early on, my parents and my family and Bill McGowan, and later on, probably my children. Okay? Okay, thanks you guys very much. Appreciate it.
On behalf of the Institute for Leadership Advancement and the Terry College of Business, we'd like to thank you for speaking with us
Thank you.
today.
Oh, thank you very much. The arches. Am I allowed to walk through them, or? God. Thank you very much. Thanks, guys.
All right,
Enjoyed it.
so
Thank you
much.
all.
If you're a student, please remember to fill out your attendance cards, and we're going to be collecting those on the way out. Also, make sure to come to our next Terry Leadership Speaker Series. It's on March 28th.